Well, it's official. Dead Rising 4 is a complete flop. For the record, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, a game that was considered a failure by many, at least managed to sell 1 million copies recently. Puzzle Fighter, despite the fact that I can't find it on the charts, also seems to be doing fairly well for itself. But Dead Rising 4, despite the fact that it's been out for far longer, and it's managed to get a PlayStation 4 port as well, still hasn't managed to sell 1 million copies yet. These numbers are from Capcom's latest financial results, and you can view them on places like GameSpot or Gematsu. Links to them will be in the description. Things may look bleak for the series, especially when you remember that franchises like Mega Man or Lost Planet, for example, were put on hiatus or made it seem like they were cancelled, mainly because they sold far worse than Dead Rising 4 managed to. And while these numbers aren't good, per se, I don't think the series is going away anytime soon. Dead Rising is at the very least a major Capcom series, even being mentioned in the financial results, not for Dead Rising 4's total sales, but still as a major brand name. Another thing to remember is that each Dead Rising game takes about 3 to 4 years to develop, at least looking by the dates from release schedules. It's very possible that a new Dead Rising game is already in development, and more evidence points to this by the fact that Capcom Vancouver has some job listings available. These new job listings are for AAA titles or for mobile games, so there's a small chance that the next Dead Rising could be any one of those. The main reason why I'm focusing on Dead Rising is because outside of Puzzle Fighter on mobile, all we know for Capcom Vancouver is that they've been primarily a Dead Rising studio. As for what to expect from the series going forward, I think we could look to Dead Rising 3 as a small point of reference, or Dead Rising 4's Capcom Heroes update, for example. They won't go back and make the game series play exactly like the first two games. I think that's a reality we all have to accept going forward. But at the very least, there's a chance that I could play like Dead Rising 3, a decent but flawed game which has a bunch of potential to build upon. That said though, there's an elephant in the room, and that's mainly in regards to where to take the series going forward. Dead Rising 3 kind of ended the series as far as I'm concerned, mainly because there's a cure for the zombie outbreak. Dead Rising 4 tries to continue the series, but it really doesn't do it in any meaningful ways. What the series needs now is a brand new fresh start, kind of rebooting the concept in a way. And the best way to reboot the Dead Rising series, as far as I'm concerned, is to give it the Resident Evil 7 treatment. Set it in an environment smaller than the last two releases were. Try to refer to the original games, but don't bring back characters, or at least not overtly try to bring them back. And most importantly, have a standalone tale that has a similar style of storytelling that the first two games had, but finish it off in a way that there's potential for future sequels. Because as far as I'm concerned, Dead Rising is kind of hitting a brick wall in terms of what can be done with its world or story, outside of maybe doing some prequel games or try to close in the gap between Dead Rising 2 Case West and Dead Rising 3. In terms of other things to speculate on for the series, well, I think we could easily expect Dead Rising 1 and 2 to make its way onto Switch. They aren't really demanding games per se. And considering that the Switch is a massive success, even more so than Capcom originally intended it, they'd be stupid not to bring Dead Rising to a wider audience, and by that I mean an audience that probably never had the chance to play the first two games before. Dead Rising 4 on their hand, well, unless they can make the game run magically on Switch, I think what we could expect from this game going forward is that it's dead. They're more or less gonna try to ignore that the game exists like Postal 3, or just give it away for free. And by that I mean they're gonna give it away in humble bundles, humble monthlies, that kind of service. Or the prices will drop to like $10 on Steam by the time the summer sale rolls around. There's one thing I would like from the series going forward though, and that's for them to not make another numbered installment. Or at least, not yet. What I want is for Capcom Vancouver to experiment with what can be done with the series going forward, not just in terms of plot, but also in terms of maybe settings, gameplay mechanics, or engines that the game could run on. It's better than putting all their eggs into one basket, like we ultimately saw with Dead Rising 4. I mean, it worked for Resident Evil with their spin-off series, Revelations, so it can't be any worse for Dead Rising. Even the DLCs for Dead Rising 3 could be expanded into spin-offs in their own way, so it's definitely not an impossibility for Dead Rising. But this is ultimately what I have to speculate on right now. Things will probably, or definitely be different for the Dead Rising series going forward, and I'll try to look forward to future installments as best as I can. All I hope though is that the developers learn from their mistakes and never try to do what they did with Dead Rising 4 ever again.